Greetings everyone, Lumberg here. Welcome to today's video, which is going to be about August mergers or potential mergers or pools of nations that will be getting a first-time merger. This is part 2 of my video. Part 1 of the video covers second-time merging nations. This video is going to be focused on first-time merging nations, which are in this globe right here, which is globe 8 and globe 9. That's where we are, and we're really going to talk about unlocked mergers, and then we're going to end with just looking at the list of locked mergers, which I thankfully have from a great source who will remain anonymous. So let's dive into the spreadsheet. So this is the same spreadsheet as the second mergers, which I just covered in the other video, which is that first tab. The second tab is going to be the first time mergers here, and this is the list. Again, this list could not have been created without the help of wonderful people that got this message from their VIP reps or from somebody that one of their VIP reps in their nation or in their alliance told them about, and then they passed that information to me. I, of course, have no contacts. I am not a VIP. I've asked a couple of people and tried to confirm on Nation Chat. I've looked at Nation Chat and looked at the language there. That being said, all of this should be taken with a huge grain of salt because some of that Nation Chat may be wrong. Some of the information that, that players and VIP players may have passed along may have been misunderstood or mistranslated. And then finally, a lot of this is subject to change, because, and a lot of these nations don't, always check Discord and responded, and I may not be capturing. Furthermore, if you look at this list, I have 25 nations here, and we all know that these are going to be most likely 2-nation mergers, and they will need to be an even number, so I'm definitely missing one. So if you're not on the list and you're down on this list down here below, there's a chance that you might get selected or you'll get selected next time. So keep that in mind, and again, don't get too excited or too disheartened with this list. Excuse me, too much talking. Okay, so similar to the first time merger tab, I've tried to include some information, but unlike the the second time merger tab, I've tried to include some additional information here just because I know a little bit less about these nations. They're pretty far removed from 285, my nation, so I've tried to include more analytical and statistical data. So this time we're going to look at top 10 alliances instead of looking at it in billions, just because these are smaller, newer nations, so their BP is lower. I tried to include it in millions just because you lose some information that way. So I've included top 10 alliance, top 3 alliance BP, and top 1 alliance BP. And those are important because I wanted to show the streamlining of strength and how aligned are these nations in terms of getting all of their best players into one spot, into that super alliance or those top 2 or 3 alliances. So here in these columns, red and green may or not be good or bad things. They're just highest and lowest BP. But for the other ones, green means better and red means worse here. So I included 2 percentages, which is, what is top 3 as a percentage of top 10. So for example, for 636, it's 80%. That just means that top 3 alliance BP here. Of course, similarly, if you click it here, I do include what is the top 1, 2, and 3 in the detail of the number. You can see it, so all that information is there. And then what's the distribution here? You can see the top 3, and then it tapers off pretty quickly. And then some of these may just be farms. So pretty good concentration in the top 3 with that high 80% number here. And then what about top 1? That I wanted to show what is the lead alliance strength compared to the rest of the top 10 alliances. For example, here, Impressive Nation 652, the top alliance is 56.6%, and then even more impressively, 709, 63% is all in the top alliance, and then 85 in the top 3, really a very lean nation here. So red doesn't really mean bad here. You can see it here, top nation 1.1 billion, then the rest is 387. So really a streamlined nation that probably has killed off all of its farmers and really streamlined to create that super alliance. That might be pretty impressive. Of course, you can see that here. Wow, they have 2 C38. So we'll get to that in a second. So the next column here over is, what is the number of C38s? And unlike the second time mergers, we really need to go down to C33s because you're not going to get many C38s to 36 here. So I've included all the way down to C33. Then I've looked at the slightly different template here, and this is I've learned from my friend Inquisitor, who did a great analysis on the second time mergers. These are some important factors to consider now that a lot of the strength does depend on Titans and Warplanes. So officer strength above 3 million is kind of the metric that I set. But that being said, there's some of these officer strengths here might be 5, 6 million. So they're really some information missing here that I've tried to include with some of my comments about whether or not they have a monster or not in my review notes in here. I started off with creating a spy account going into NC, Nation Chat, but really then I didn't have enough time or ability to create that many spy accounts. So I just looked at in the globe, when you click on a nation, you can go to that nation and then at the right hand side, and I can show you that here. So in case you guys wanted to do it. So if you want to look at, say, we can look at where was it? We were looking at 709. So if you want to look at the stats for 709, if I can find it, there it is. So once you click on it, you go to that nation here. See this button right here? You can see the rankings. This is how, instead of creating a spy account, you can actually get all the rankings. So you go to the second tab, nation ranking here. The globe ranking really shows your globe. So I'm in 285, so it's not showing the right information. But you can go into nation ranking, and now it's showing the right information. And then here you can see 709 has that impressive 2 monsters here. Look at that, 2 C38s, and you can see it here in the city ranking. So this is how I got my information. I looked at, there's 2 C38s, there's 3 C35s, and then C34s, and that's how I kind of included it. And you can see it down here, 709, 2 C38s, nothing for C37 and 6, 3 C35s. And that's pretty much how I got some of this information. So I did not have a chance to examine the nation chat to see if they had civil war or what was going in it. So a lot of this is just from that analysis. Titan BP more than 1 million, and some of these were closer to 2 billion for the monsters. But in general, if you were at 997, I did not include you. I just did a hard cutoff with 1 billion. This data, of course, can change. This is data right around 725, and it just takes me a while to compile it and then record it. That's why it's a little delayed. And then I've included some comments about, what I think is happening, what's their concentration level, what about the top monster in the alliance? Did they get did their alliances or top 3 alliances, one of them get, a silver triangle or a bronze triangle building? That kind of shows you an idea of spending and helps you kind of seek out and see, which one will be a good match and do they have that activity and that desire to win. Triangle is a terrible event to spend in, but sometimes it's a good measure of, look, people are spending for everything. They have some monsters, or they're trying to get the island items, and so that could be a good metric. That being said, I've tried to include, some of these metrics here in red and green that, shows you the outliers. For example, here you can see Nation 675 has a 1.3 billion alliance, which is, amongst this merger pool, the highest BP alliance. Then correspondingly, Nation 686 has the lowest BP alliance. Now that could be because they're lean, or it could be that, look, they have a bad concentration. So in general, you can see here some of the concentration. Some of the best concentrations looks like is 709 that we talked about. We talked about 648 has a good concentration. And really it shows you, that distribution of, can you get your top players into these bigger alliances? That being said, then when you also look at this metric here, this shows you, that top alliance, how streamlined is it? So a great example of the ones that really focused is 652 and 709. Some bad examples are 692 and 712. But that being said, that isn't the, that's not the final conclusion. But here you can see 692 is worse because they have a lot of BP in that nation. In fact, it's the highest BP nation here. Some other higher BP nations are 712 and 718. That's, again, none of these one things alone is a nail in the coffin or a huge celebration. But one thing is certainly clear that, the nations that have these monsters or these C38 at this level in this globe is definitely a monster, a heavy spender. It certainly helps kind of sway the nation. And, when you're C38s and fighting, T10s with C33s and 11s, it really makes a huge difference regardless of stats. So 709, 714, each has 2. So these are wildly impressive that they have that. And then not only that, they have that correspondingly, high officer BP, Titan strength, and warplane. And then another impressive nation that has the C-38s is 652 and 636. And then some of these, even though they may not have C-38s, they actually have some C-37 monsters. So you can look at these notes where I've tried to put like whether or not they have a monster or not, what if they're streamlining, if you can see a bronze or silver statue. And then one more interesting thing here was, that both of these C-38s is called Mumra. I don't know if they're the same person, if it's another one like the 9 Vegas, but it looks like, interestingly, everything was high. Like the Titans were really high, the officers were really high, the BP was pretty decent, and then of course C-38 both. But what was impressive is that the warplane was for both was less than 300,000, like 200,000, and the other one was 100,000 something, which leads me to think that this player may just be frustrated with the game or has lowered their spending, or really is the smartest one of all of us and has exited spending on this crazy addiction. And you can see that here because the warplanes are lower spend, but still it doesn't take away that somebody in this nation 714 with a C-38 with almost 2 million Titan power is going to be unstoppable. So again, really impressive there. Hopefully they stay on. This merger will make them re-engage into the game if they're in the process of not being engaged as much. And then look at 689. This is a C-37. I called it a semi-monster, but it has over half a billion kills. That's the man in the #1 War Alliance. Here, there is a C-37 monster who's probably just as good as a C-38 monster, King Cobra. He has a 1.9 million Titan and a 1.2 million warplane. So I think that guy has realized that, look, it's not really in the troop tiers, it's in the Titans and warplanes, and is rightfully, just spending that money there instead of on uranium, and is probably just as good as any other C-38 monster. Again, here, I tried to point out if anything glared at me like that. It looks like there's another high warplane strength here, C-37 semi-monster. But this nation, it appears that the merger has prompted them to work together and they got out of a civil war. So that's 658. So I've tried to include some notes here that helps kind of help you determine, get some information. Again, this is a view from 30,000 feet above. Your best chance is going to be to reach out to these leaders. Remember, when you create a spy city, you should create a spy city in these nations if you don't have it for communication purposes, or you can reach out also in this Discord page. This is where I got a lot of my information. So here in pre-merger time, you can see a lot of this information people are talking about. This is where a huge thank to everybody that helped me get this information, especially just to name a few names, Inquisitor, Avarice, Animal, Torch, Ilwar, Devil Dog, Slime, Thomas the Train, Goat, and Hannibal, and many other people. If I didn't mention you, it's because, I just couldn't go back and find it and the messages, and I've talked to so many people, and I'm only human. But, this is where you can reach out and find people from your nation. A lot of activity here, especially around this time because some of the, merger chat and buzz is going on. And I did reach out to some people and did ask them like, hey, do you want me to include you on this list as a contact? That was my original goal. But really knowing the trolls and knowing people's privacy and knowing how, much messages and how much effort goes into the negotiations and the conversation and the diplomacy during merger, I thought I didn't really want to make these people's lives any harder with dealing with unwanted, kind of drama that sometimes gets dragged in from other nations into your nation or into the process. That being said, reach out to these people. A city level 12, you can, in the game, contact anybody, direct message. City level 10 doesn't let you direct message, but it lets you post in world chat. But with a city level 6, you can still actually just post, and why don't I demonstrate it if I can, maybe. Let's see. So even with the city level 6, and this is where I kind of tried to put some of my... as you can see, I've created a lot of nations. So let's go into here. I have a city level 6 and 636. I already have this information. I can see their nation chat, but you can still communicate. You can actually respond to a message here. So I'll try to respond here, and you can see that you don't need to be that. So even if you respond here, you can try to reach out and say, hey, I'm from this world. Of course, don't use a commander name, use something identifiable and say that there's a lot of attention going to be for a merger. And then furthermore, even if you wanted to create a chat, you can actually do it this way. If you go into your Titans, well, I haven't actually awakened the Titan here, but you can actually use the share button in your Titan somewhere around here. And once that shares, it'll show up in World Chat, and then you can go into your message and then click on that same message and reply to it. So you can start a new thread if you didn't have anything related to merger. Just wanted to share that you don't have to spend a bunch of time taking it to city level C12. You can communicate it that way and then transfer to one of the chat apps. Finally, in this video, I'm going to talk about the locked nations. Really not talk about it that much other than it's happening. This is a list that I've gotten. Of course, again, this one also looks incomplete because it looks like there is 7 merged nations or once merged nations, so it's missing 1. And there's 14 unmerged nations, so that may or may not be complete, but if they are going to have 2 nation mergers, which I think that's what they're having, you can see here they get a merger slightly sooner compared to the locked nations, and the unmerged the first time mergers are about 100 worlds sooner than unlocked nations. That's usual. That will continue, but at least we're getting a communication. We're knowing who's merging, and so that's good. So that's improvement at least. And that being said, with some of the matchups, I think people do just fine in fighting these earlier merged nations. With that being said, hopefully if you have any more information, if you're one of the mergers, if you're one of the nations that got a merger or that's about to be in this pool of mergers and I didn't capture you, please let me know and I will move you and update this file. This is the same file as locked nation mergers, and you can see the history of the locked. All of this is here. The July mergers are here. I just use the same file in the link and just building this information as next month comes along. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Really appreciate the help from the community. This wouldn't be possible without everyone's help, and hopefully you find some use for this number crunching and this information, and it helps your process go smoother. Again, I will say be very, very patient, and remember, you can make the most out of any merger just going into it with a clean slate. Try to kind of leave the past behind and start afresh. That's my parting words of I don't want to say wisdom, but just experience of going through this. Take care. Have a great night.